Yeah, I mean, the impact fees are myriad. I mean, and say we have multiple layers of government, all with, you know, with a fee. And you know, people like to say that housing's a priority. It's our #1 priority, and I use my Joe Bidenism. I says, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what your priority is. We tax housing to pay for everything else. For schools and for parks and for libraries and for police and for roads. So it's not really a priority. So if we can, at least in this one instance, roll back those fees and make housing, finally make housing a true priority, we can really increase the volume of ADUs in our region, I think. And if you look at, as I say, the example of Vancouver, where they got it right, they got the blend of regulation and fees to a place where homeowners actually built these units.
Well, I think, you know, part of the challenge that we have is people are so short-sighted, and I'm not pounding on the city councils and the development sections of their city, but, you know, if I add on a second unit, that's cost me, you know, $300 a square foot, you know, $200,000. My property taxes, even in the Prop 13 era, are going to probably go up $2,200. That's supposed to be the impact. Yep. That's supposed to pay for the police and the schools and all that stuff. And you have too many cities that have 0 secondary units because they're waiting for the big impact fee right up on the front. So yep. You know, that's an education level. The other follow-up question I have is, why limit it to, you know, transit-oriented areas? And if we're looking at a talking like Bernie Sanders now, like a revolution, yeah. Why not let that market mechanisms? Obviously, transit-oriented is going to be more desirable, yep. Right? But why not just let it happen wherever it happens?
I think that's, we would certainly have no opposition to having ADU ministerial, by ministerial decision across the board. I think there are, in the cities that have done them, there are certain restrictions, like Oakland, in the Oakland Hills, for example, they had a big fire not so long ago. Narrow streets, it's probably
5 years ago.
Yeah, not probably a good idea to add additional density on those narrow streets of single-family home areas. So their ordinance prohibits ADUs on certain up in the hills and focuses them on the areas that are closer to transit, on the flatter parts of Oakland. But we would not be opposed to removing the parking requirements across the board, because demographic studies have shown that millennials, young people, are using car share programs, far lower adoption rates of driving. Young people these days, it's not a rite of passage anymore to get a driver's license. People are just not using cars to the same degree that they did in the past, but we're still mandating that we invest huge amounts of money in housing cars that people don't use.
I mean, my thinking is that if we prohibited cities from requiring that the homeowner put in any parking, tandem, yep. Covered, whatever it is, and it can't be done by ordinance, then the homeowner, in order to make their unit perhaps more desirable, might put that in, might you know, you're going to get a mismatch. There's going to be some people that are going to say, hey, there's the BART, and there's no gig here for parking. You just live here and get on the BART and get out of town. But that would be market driven, yep. Depending on where you are and what your lot looks like versus the prohibition, which doesn't allow this type of construction.
Yeah, I think a good analogy would be the state density law bonus, where the state has mandated that if you include a certain percentage of affordable units in your project, you have to give the developer a certain density. Local jurisdictions have to do that, and they, you know, and those units get built. If there was a similar directive from the state that says you cannot mandate parking if you're within half a mile, no. I think it would be, you know, you'll probably get pushback from the locals, but you'll get a lot more production at the end of the day. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I got for the panel, maybe whoever wants to respond to this. the state of California is building through a high-speed rail authority, a huge investment. And the high-speed rail, and there'll be like several high-speed rail stations. We hope to have a lot of housing and land use development around those stations, okay? How do we facilitate affordable housing being built and financed around the high-speed rail stations? Some comments on that.
The issue is land availability again.
Yeah.
And one ideal way to deal with it would be for the state to buy land, not just for the station, but land surrounding the station within, let's say, half a mile.
Yes,
So
okay.
that is to engage in land banking. So when
a
you do
trust,
that.
a land trust, or some kind of process like that, maybe,
But
or
basically,
some
it
other
would be
way.
would be public land so that the value of the land would not increase as a result of the construction of the station.
Yeah.
Another
Okay.
way would be to use the special assessment district, so that if you don't do land banking, the owners of land who benefit from the station would pay. In the case of the Metro Red Line in
Right.
Los Angeles,
Yeah.
a great deal of money came from a special assessment district.
Yeah,
But the ideal solution would be land banking,
Yeah.
because that you avoid land pricing to go up.
Yeah, Kevin? Go
One
ahead.
additional thought on this is also to look at laws that have been passed recently. I'm thinking of Assemblymember Ting's bill
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
requiring that public land be first offered to affordable housing developers, and then also to make sure that it requires inclusionary zoning or inclusionary requirements. Some jurisdictions and some transit agencies, who are clearly covered by this law, are looking and saying, well, if we build housing and it's connected to our transportation, then it's really not surplus land, so the law doesn't apply to us. So making sure that as we look at, locating more transportation near, more housing near transportation sites, making sure that legislation like the Ting bill properly covers all of those situations.
Thank you.
Well, if I may add to that, BART, about a month ago, they decided to have a 20% inclusionary mandate for the land they
Yeah,
own around BART.
yeah.
But also, that would be one way to keep the price of land from escalating, is to say 50% should be affordable housing on land surrounding the stations. So the difference.
I think one thing Bart did, it was kind of interesting, that debate, they first looked at, and I saw a staff report, because I read all this stuff, despite what Bart thinks, I read every little thing about what they're doing. They had a staff report that said, don't allow any lower income housing, because that way the value of the property will go up and Bart would get receipts from all this value increase. And therefore we can use more money, we can have more money to generate for our operating expenses, but on the other hand, the people that would live in that higher income housing don't ride BART, so it defeated the mission of BART, which is to have riders, increase ridership. So it kind of like was looking at the value increase versus the goal of ridership, and of course the goal of affordable housing next to BART. So I kind of watched that. I did make some comments about that conflict.
Senator, just
yeah,
one
go ahead.
idea that might work is bringing back tax increment financing. I mean, if you have, if you're generating value around high-speed rail stations, we have a model. It worked before. It can work again. Obviously, it needs to be brought back, but it's proven itself.
We got kind of a halfway law on that. We got SB 628 2 years ago that dealt with tax increment financing around stations, and it got, I would say, watered down quite a bit in the end, but we can relook at that also, so thank you.
But that does not capture the increase in the value of land.
Right.
Just,
Yeah.
we might want to talk about it. I
Okay,
have no
thank
use as a
you.
recapture mechanism.
We have public comment on we have time please, Professor, you can come forward. Others, come on, please. You guys
All done?
can relinquish your chairs. We'll invite the public to make comments. Have a seat. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you. My name is Rachel Guinness. I know it's late. I want to thank you so much, Chairman Bell, for this meeting. This is so valuable, and what an amazing panel. Again, my name's Rachel Guinness. I'm the founding director of a nonprofit called Lily Pad Homes. We advocate, support, and facilitate the development of second units of all kinds. I am here to tell you about an ordinance that we've been establishing in Marin, and it is currently just been announced as a Assembly Bill 2406. It makes the repurposing of spare bedrooms easily and inexpensively permitted. I think the fastest way to tell you about this is to tell you my own story. I am a LEED accredited residential designer and a general contractor. I've been working in California for about 15 years, but when I became a single parent, I wanted to hold on to my home, so I temporarily repurposed the master bedroom into a wonderful little living space, and the income from that space allowed me to stay in my home on a designer salary, keep my daughter in her school just down the street from her dad's house. I was allowed to take on roommates, but I was raising a 5-year-old daughter, so I really needed to ensure our privacy. I didn't see who it was hurting, because again, I was allowed to take on roommates. So I was basically just telling them to go into the master bedroom and don't come out. So I created a wonderful space, and interestingly enough, 15 years later, I have now moved into my 230 square foot apartment so that I could start a nonprofit. It gave me the financial freedom to start a nonprofit to empower other people to do the same thing. Right now, or even back then, if I had walked into the permitting department and I had asked them if I could create a second unit out of the master bedroom in my home, they would have hit me up with about $35,000 to $52,000 worth of permitting and connection fees and costly requirements, which, to be specific, I couldn't have met because I couldn't have made the parking requirement. What sets junior second units or junior accessory dwelling units apart from every other type of second unit is because they specifically repurpose bedrooms, all of the water and energy, all the road use, all the parking, all the infrastructure, everything associated with that living space has already been accounted for in the original permit. And so it's like double taxation to charge people $35,000 to $52,000 worth of permitting connection requirement fees. And I can tell you, junior second units are so incredibly simple to create that could cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000. So the opportunity that we have, and I can tell you, I'm in Marin, so, and it is true, what Matt Regan said, yes, we are the most overhoused community in California. We have more bedrooms per person than any other community, but with that said, over half the homes in California are occupied by only 1 or 2 people. In most cases, it's a couple sleeping in a single bedroom. So we're in the middle of a massive housing crisis, yet we have more bedrooms than we know what to do with. And with that said, so many people are struggling to stay in their homes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Denise Pinkston. I'm the housing co-chair of the Bay Area Council Housing Committee, but I also was a current planner who used to do zoning enforcement against second units in Marin County. That was part of my job description. And I currently work at my day job as a real estate developer in San Francisco. We have built thousands of units in the Bay Area, often in partnership with Bridge Housing. And so I bring a unique perspective of public affairs, developer, and I also teach and work with Carol Galante at the Turner Center. And I just wanted to talk to you, I endorse everything Rachel said about junior second units. What I would love to see is Thurman's bill modified slightly to say that it is now state law that anywhere in the state of California, any homeowner gets to add a junior second unit without having the city adopt enabling legislation. We have a Second Unit Enabling Act. It makes all the findings about housing urgency that existed in 2002, and it has a big barn door in it that cities are driving a lot of regulation through that says, but cities get to set standards. And I think in a housing crisis, it's a perfectly reasonable thing for the state to say along the lines that you were intimating. Single-family zoning was designed to be exclusionary, and it does its job incredibly effectively. And we now, the state of California, have decided that we want to build in And that state policy is really important. And when there are not enough land areas available for multifamily developers to build enough market rate housing. So this is a way for 60 to 70% of the land area of many cities to be repurposed to allow our homes, which are often too big or not flexible anymore, to accommodate growing and changing families as a matter of state law. And just as you did with density bonuses, you created a rule and then the locals got to enforce it. You can create a rule and then the locals get to enforce it, and it gives zoning boards the opportunity to say, we don't have any choice about these second units. The state said we had to because of the crisis.
Bruce Wolf, San Francisco Community Land Trust and California CLT Network. How are you today? Very great, really a lot of great information. Two things. One on the high-speed rail. I would suggest using the CLT model because that does prevent that the issue of the increases as people are talking about, and it creates right. Exactly, and also it creates community involvement and participation in what is happening around those properties also. So it stays very much kind of a public kind of entity with a lot of public participation. Second thing, back to the top of this around Cal FHA products. In San Francisco, as you know, there's not a whole lot of places to build. Unless you tear something, buy something, you tear it down, you build something new on top of the same space. The land trust in San Francisco is what we do is we buy properties that have tenants in it already. That are then in fear or might be vulnerable to Ellis Act evictions. And then those properties get taken off the market, and we turn those tenants into a housing co-op. And this is a very sustainable model where there is some funding around in the city where now you have a one-time investment that then gets churned over and over and over again in perpetuity for affordable housing. And we'd like to see some of those products in Cal FHA be available to us because we're not a ground-up development type of organizations. Lots of different ways to cut the cookie. Thank you.
Other speakers, please? Anybody else? Okay, I just want to thank you. We had just lots of information today. We covered it really fast and furious. And I say we need to address the issue of this affordable housing, and there's some real immediate, definite things we can do. So with that, this committee meeting is adjourned.